Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Study Sessions. My name, of course, is Mr. Buff, and in today's episode of The Key 3, we're focusing on one of the most important themes in Shakespeare's Macbeth, which is, of course, ambition. Now, today's episode links directly to your homework. It's week 4 in the exam preparation booklet, and you can see you're given an extract from Act 1, Scene 7. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a close analysis of Macbeth's vaulting ambition. And then what I'll do is I'll add in 3 more quotations relating to the question focus, which is, of course, the theme of ambition, taken from the beginning, the middle, and the end of the play. So by the close of today's podcast, you'll have 4 really textually anchored moments you can use in your essay writing. So let's start with Act 1, Scene 7. It's the extract that's given to us. And we're going to be thinking about what on earth is this vaulting ambition? Now, contextually, what's going on around this extract? How have we got to this particular point in the play? So Macbeth has heard the witch's prophecies. He's obviously had all the royal praise. He's Thane of Cawdor and so on. And he's discussed the murder, crucially, with Lady Macbeth. Now, alone on stage, he weighs up the reasons not to kill Duncan, and admits to himself, and because this is a soliloquy, we can also hear his thoughts, so the audience knows this too, so he admits to himself and the audience that it's only ambition that is pushing and driving him. Now, the full quotation I want us to consider is as follows, quote, "I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other." End quote. So we're in the realm of figurative language. We've got a metaphor here. And what is happening is that Macbeth is imagining himself as a horse rider, without a spur. Now, a spur literally is attached to the bottom of a rider's boot, and they jab it into the side of a horse, makes a horse go faster or jump over some sort of obstacle. And so he imagines, that he's like a horse rider, without a spur. And what he means there, and what Shakespeare is getting at, is the idea that Macbeth realizes he has no just cause, no real good reason to drive or go ahead with the deed. And of course, the deed is regicide. Now, in the phrase, and we've got to zoom in on this key phrase, vaulting ambition, the verb vaulting, meaning to leap, to overleap perhaps, suggests overreaching, that idea of leaping beyond limits, leaping beyond what is considered safe or acceptable. And that phrase falls on the other, which often students steer clear of, means something like ambition can backfire. It can be self-defeating. So what we've got then is Macbeth recognizing in this moment of metaphor, this moment of figurative language, that his only real motive for killing King Duncan, for going ahead with the regicide, is a kind of reckless, self-defeating ambition. And it's an ambition that he recognizes tends to destroy itself. Now, a quick word on that word ambition, because ambition today is a word that quite often in 2025 will have very positive connotations. In Shakespeare's day, the word ambition is negative. It has lots of negative associations. It doesn't really have any of the positive associations that we link it to or link it with today. The word ambition means something like prideful, arrogant, hubristic. It means those sorts of things in Shakespeare's day. So Macbeth knows that ambition is a negative, is something that's going to cause him to behave recklessly. It's going to result in his own self-defeat. It tends to destroy itself. And of course, this is really foreshadowing what happens across the course of the play. If we also want to think about this from a Jacobean angle, so thinking about this from the point of view of an audience at the time when this is first put on stage, think about how Macbeth is overstepping, overleaping that great chain of being, that natural divine order. And that idea of overleaping and overstepping where one should be is considered sinful. Audiences would expect this kind of ambition to end in disaster. So we're thinking then, and you should be thinking about this. This is a little reflection question. Why does Shakespeare warn us that ambition is dangerous before Macbeth commits the murder? It's interesting. Why does Shakespeare warn us that ambition is dangerous before Macbeth commits the murder? Okay, so that's the extract, and that's the key quotation that we should really be spending a lot of time. There's loads of wonderful quotations from the extract, but that's the really key one, okay? Now we're going to go back a couple of scenes. We're still in Act 1, but we're going to go back to Act 1, Scene 4, okay? And for context, think about after the victory, okay? So after the victory of Duncan's forces, obviously aided, they really are pivotal. Macbeth and Banquo are critical to the success of Duncan's forces and the defeat of the Norwegians. Don't forget that King Duncan in this scene publicly thanks Macbeth and Banquo, but also, crucially, he names Malcolm the Prince of Cumberland. That is, Malcolm is now the official next in line to the throne. He's going to be king after Duncan's death. And what this does is puts a real obstacle between Macbeth and the crown. And so the quotation that I want us to pay attention to is this, quote, "Stars, hide your fires. Let not light see my black and deep desires." Okay, so stars, hide your fires. Now, what Macbeth does is appeals, curiously, to heavenly light. He says, stars, hide your fires. Now, normally, stars and light are a symbol of moral truth, moral visibility, goodness, and so on. We associate light with those sorts of concepts. But he says, hide your fires. Let not light see my black and deep desires. Those adjectives, black and deep, what do? They frame or they convey the idea that ambition is something dark, secretive, and morally wrong. And of course, there's a sense that Macbeth recognizes this about his own ambitions. He wants darkness to conceal or hide his intentions, his ambitious desires. He knows they are sinful, and their desires, these ambitions are desires. They're like a core part of who he is. And this serves a really important dramatic function. This prince-making scene, this Prince of Cumberland scene, triggers Macbeth's inner turn. Ambition hardens from something like temptation into a sort of driving desire and purpose. Notice too, if we're talking about deception, that this is an aside. He says this, obviously, so we, the audience, can hear, but the other characters can't. So we've got that idea that he's being deceptive. He's concealing those black and deep desires. Deep, a part of him, black desires, obviously we associate with evil, things that are morally wrong, things that are deeply sinful. So think then, how does naming Malcolm, when Duncan names Malcolm as Prince of Cumberland, why is it that accelerates Macbeth's ambition? What is it about the idea that there's an obstacle in his way which seems to speed up or accelerate or kind of catalyze Macbeth's ambition? Okay, we're going to move now to the middle of the play, Act 3, Scene 1. And for context, at this stage, Macbeth has killed Duncan. And of course, now he's got what we think he wants and what he seems to think he wants, which is that he's king. He's gone through with the regicide. But don't forget, the witches also promised that Banquo's descendants would be kings. And so Macbeth, who you think would be satisfied because he's king, he's not. He now fears losing everything. And here's the quotation, quote, "To be thus is nothing, but to be safely thus." Now, thus here means being king, okay? And we've got that key word, nothing. The word nothing kind of downgrades the crown. His ambition has been sort of delivered. He's got what he wanted. He's got the status of king, but he's not safely king. He's without security. There's a sense of restlessness here. Okay, ambition isn't satisfied. Macbeth's ambition isn't satisfied. You think it would be because he's king, but he's not safely, securely king. And this is the thing about ambition, and this is what Shakespeare wants to get across to us about ambition, that in a sense, ambition can never be satisfied. It always demands more. And so, of course, Macbeth shifts. He's just killed Duncan. Now he shifts to planning Banquo's murder. So here's a key idea. Ambition, the idea that ambition can't be satisfied, it's always demanding more. What ambition does in the play is it creates a cycle. He gets what he wants, okay? We get gain. He gains the crown. But then there's fear. He's not satisfied. He doesn't feel secure. So that fear then leads to violence. What does that violence do? It creates more fear. He gets the crown. He kills Duncan. He gets the crown. But then he starts to fear. He fears Banquo. Okay, so what does he do? He has Banquo killed. But then, is he satisfied? No, you think he's gained security, but not really. So there's more fear generated. Obviously, he starts to have the ghostly hallucination of the banquet scene of Banquo's ghost. That creates more fear. More fear. Okay, who does he start to fear? He starts to fear Macduff, which leads to, guess what? More violence. And so the cycle, this ambitious cycle, perpetuates itself. There's never a point when he feels safe, secure, content with what he has gained. So here's a quick reflection question. Why does Macbeth feel less safe, this is strange, after achieving his goal of becoming king? And so we move to the end, Act 5, Scene 5. And the context is that Lady Macbeth has just died. She's committed suicide, and enemy forces are closing in. Okay, so in this is a very famous, beautiful, powerful soliloquy. Okay, enemy forces closing in, and Macbeth reflects on life's meaning or life's meaninglessness. Okay, the idea that life doesn't really mean anything just before his final tragic fall. Here's a quotation, quote, "It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing." Now, we've got a lovely echo there. To be thus is nothing, but to be safely thus. So we've got that echo of nothing. It links back to Act 3, Scene 1. To be thus is nothing. Now, life itself is signifying nothing. And we've got that metaphor just before this line of theatre, a poor player, a tale that signifies nothing, a senseless tale. Human life, human activity, human striving is this kind of empty, meaningless performance. So what's the message here? Okay, this idiot, full of sound and fury, okay, signifying nothing, this idea that life means nothing. Unchecked ambition has stripped Macbeth of not just morality. He's not just become amoral, behaving in all of these kind of evil, sinful ways. He's actually kind of meaningless in his behavior. His life seems to mean nothing. Everything he's done seems to mean nothing. Everything ends when we follow our ambitions, when we engage with our vaulting ambitions. Everything ends in a kind of emptiness, nothingness. All that's left is a meaningless form of empty ambition. Macbeth is like a hollow person, nothing left inside. So final, quick thought, quick check. How is it that repeated idea of nothing tracks Macbeth's ambition from hunger to paranoia to despair? So to wrap up today's episode, just to recap these 4 key anchor points for your essay. we've got from the extract itself, vaulting ambition, the idea that ambition is reckless and indeed self-destructive. Then from even earlier in the play, at the beginning, we've got stars, hide your fires, the idea that ambition becomes secret and morally dark and sinful when Malcolm is named Prince of Cumberland, official heir to the throne. In Act 3, in the middle, in Act 3, Scene 1, Macbeth says, to be thus is nothing, but to be safely thus. So ambition then is never satisfied, never feels secure or satisfied. It breeds fear and yet more violence. And then finally, right towards the end of the play, Act 5, Scene 5, it is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury. And here's a crucial part, signifying nothing. Where does ambition leave Macbeth? Ambition ends in emptiness and nihilism, a belief in nothing, a belief that nothing means anything. So the big takeaway then is that Shakespeare presents ambition in the play as a force that tempts, then corrupts, and then consumes until it leaves nothing behind. I'll say that again. Shakespeare presents ambition as a force that tempts, then it corrupts, then it consumes, eats up, devours, until nothing is left behind. So, as always, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Study Sessions. Use these 4 key quotations and all of the word-level ideas and analysis that I've covered today to complete your homework to the highest possible standard. And notice, too, how nothing threads the middle and the end together to show, in a sense, the ultimate self-destructive futility of ambition. So I will see you next time. As always, thank you so much for listening and best of luck with your homework.